morning, Mashe. Good morning, Lagos.
Okay, coming along. Then we'll say good morning to Chibuzor, Nwaezeapu.
I'll try and put some pep in my voice. Good morning, Lagos. Good morning, Uade.
Good morning, Chibuzor.
Good morning, Amashe.
Oh, thanks so much. Glad to have you guys sit in. Now, let's go into the papers. I got a whole lot of issues. First, let's tackle power. And this is coming from the Premium Times and Wade. Please do us the honors of getting to understand what is this Abiku, the coming and going that comes to go as it is, even though she said, dig me deeper the next time you bury me and then punish me with that so that you see me next time when you recognize. Well, okay.
Maybe you should just all this back and forth. Just cremate the man.
Let's
the
just
woman, and then we'll move on.
Let's go on to
maybe the ashes won't come back after that.
We don't believe in cremation in this.
So, gentlemen, Premium Times, Wade, this is yours. Again, Nigeria's electricity grid collapses. That's what the Premium Times reports this morning.
Yeah, so the grid collapsed on Monday at 2:42 a.m. Generation dropped to 64.70 megawatts. We've seen this. If you go through the report, it says that since 2013, the grid has collapsed more than 140 times. So when everybody talks about the grid, I know you need to look at the power value chain, but the emphasis is always going back to generation and distribution. Nobody talks about the transmission company who is responsible for managing the grid, which is responsible for managing the grid, and this is the part that is owned by the government. So what are they doing? How much investments have they put in there? We've heard since the privatization, oh, we can do 4,000, 5,000 megawatts, but we've been hearing that since. We heard earlier in the year when the minister says, oh, by June we'll move to 6,000 megawatts. He said that, and 4 times after that, the grid has collapsed. So it just beats me. What are we doing? Oh, we need $2 billion to invest in the power. Where are you going to invest it? Everybody is hounding the generation. You can't get gas. Payment for gas are not regular. Everybody is hounding the distribution. You can't improve your network. Cost of what's it called, exchange rates it had gone up at a point in time to 1,900. If you look at the history of privatization of the power sector, you will just find out that agreements were signed at exchange rates. I saw some of those agreements. Exchange rate agreed 160 naira to $1. Immediately, 2 years down the line, dollar went up to 400 and something, then came back to almost 500, came back to 306 naira, and then it stabilized for a while, and then it just continued to go. A lot of this infrastructure is not built in Nigeria. That's one. And then two, we continue to hear from the generation side the back and forth on how much gas should cost, and when gas costs XYZ, how do you pay for it? How do you get the supply? If monies are not coming from the consumers, how do you pay the back end of the value chain? So these are things that government needs to sit down. 10 years after, nobody has sat down and properly understood the fact that the power sector is an inverted pyramid. If the consumers are not paying, nobody's going to get money. And if investment is not being made in transmission to expand the transmission grid, today what you have is a number of renewable power generation companies and transmission businesses who are doing off-grid. There are more off-grid. There seems to be more reliable off-grid transmission capacity than you have on the federal government. So 10 years down the line, with all the monies that have been spent, where has it gone? Why haven't we moved that capacity from 4,000 that we've been hearing in 2014 to even try and measure up to what the generation capacity of between 15,000 and 20,000 megawatts?
Well, when you raise off-grid as part of it, probably like a solution that would lessen the burden on the national grid, maybe one should be asking environment. Just quickly add a caveat: the environmentally friendly off-grid, because generators are off-grid too, and we see the impact and the cost.
Let's stop. Let's stop playing with English. Transmission is a key issue in Nigeria. We have capacity for between 12 and 15,000, like they say, maybe up to 20,000. We have opportunities to expand our distribution when we do the right thing in terms of getting people metered. and looking for a solution to how we're going to meter Nigerians so that people can pay whatever amount you say you need to pay for power. If more people are not consuming power, then it's going to be more expensive to those who get it.
Must we all be on the national grid?
So I think maybe I would chip in. I think and it's a question I've posed to friends of mine, because he beautiful thing that he mentioned, the upgrade solutions. As more people take up the upgrade, as more people take up the upgrade solutions, what happens is that you reduce reliance on the on-grid. The only way for you to reduce the cost in the on-grid is by pushing more people to uptake it so that they can pay for it. So it's almost like opposing forces.
Yeah, but how
at some
do you,
point,
yeah,
so you have to find that balance, really.
And I agree with you, but the other question is how, like you said, how do you use the synergy of both?
That's having an integrated solution at the end of the day.
So, and to have an integrated solution does mean that you need to increase the efficiency of the transmission lines. You need to maintain them properly. You need to expand them. These are not being done. Like I continue to say, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, band A we get 20 hours. And since that announcement, we have not generated or been able to push through the grid more than 3,000 megawatts of electricity.
Thank you very much, Uade, for the concise and incisive explanation relating to what we need to do to get this Abiku to finally stay called power in Nigeria.
I don't know if it's an Abiku, but we can go on.
All right, moving on. Let's get to the next paper, the Vanguard newspaper, where Chibuzor would help us crunch these figures. The figures are out now. Inflation seems to be galloping or probably racing somewhere. We don't know. Let's see. The Vanguard says more pressures on pockets as food inflation rises to 40% for March.
Okay. So what we have here is basically they've used food inflation as the headline number. But what we have here basically is an increase of the official inflation rates for Nigeria from 31.7 to 33.2. And I use the keyword official because I know if I ask a lot of my friends and people on the street, they'll probably tell you that the numbers are far higher than those numbers. But obviously there's a method to the madness, and MBS has applied certain methodology and approaches to get these numbers. So when we go in further and we talk about the food inflation numbers at 40%, this is, if I'm not wrong, this is a blended number. It's across the federation. These are basically an average across the federation. As at last month, the last review before this last numbers, you had states that had over 40% food inflation numbers. I think, if I can recall, some states in the Niger Delta were part of it. You have across the country, basically, not even just. I don't want to go down to regions, but across the country, you had several states that had food inflation that exceeded 40%. And as usual, we had a lot of hues and cries across the nations, a lot of emotions flooding, that we should be self-sustaining. Why are we having this? Why are we having that? And for me, I'm not one to jump into much emotion. So since the last numbers, what we've seen, for instance, is that the CBN on one side trying to manage on the point of looking at from what they manage, which is monetary policy, trying to increase the lending rate, trying to mop up the money in circulation. That typically works when you have more demand than supply. So you're trying to reduce the amount of money in circulation to help your demand catch up with the supply. My question, and I told somebody that my knowledge of economics is pretty limited at this level, is that if you have food inflation driving your numbers, why are we so focused on demand exceeding supply and mopping up money? I understand that CBN has to do something, but the big elephant in the room is actually food inflation, which seems to be what is driving these numbers.
And it's not as if we don't know what's driving this food inflation.
So this is a topic that we've discussed so many times. What is driving food inflation? Why are we not able to produce? We're not talking about the mythical pyramids of rice, or all those things that we saw over the last 8 years. And we're talking about brass tacks, basics. Why are we not able to produce? Why are we not able to
click on the refresh button
levels,
just in case they don't even know what's causing why we can't even produce?
We have major things on the road. There's a lack of infrastructure. There's a challenge with infrastructure. Your road networks. In fact, I don't even want to talk about roads. Let's even look at rail transport, moving stuff from one point of the country to the other point of the country. Because I personally think that there's too much burden on the roads in terms of moving food and food materials. We should have Your rail network can't take away some of that load. The big thing, and has been big for over 10, 12 years, I think going to 16 to 20 years now, which we've been dragging, is security. A lot of these farmers cannot access their farms. Some of these farmers, and I think I'll use some, let me not use the word a lot, because it seems as in some of these farmers cannot access their farms. Some are, in some cases, reportedly having to pay fees to access their farms, which I guess is adding to the headline costs. So when you add those items, things that are causing either increases in costs, then obviously when you look at things, when everybody's trying to get the best pricing, so when you have all these pools from here and there, you're having inflationary forces, subsidies have reduced, so the prices of particular things have increased. So farmers are also looking at farmers are middlemen in this instance, because a lot of the farmers are not dealing directly with the end user. They're going through middlemen, and middlemen are looking, where can I get the best profit? So some people are actually smuggling. So I'm not going to discount that, which seems to be a favorite topic of the government. So I won't discount that will be happening. But how do we solve those problems? So I think that at some point, when we do see a lot of the fiscal policies or policies coming from the various ministries, from agriculture, from the states, we see some of the state governments trying to do some work in trying to accelerate agricultural growth. We see some things happening from the Minister of Finance and associate ministries. We might see some easing of pressure, but the right things have to be done. So we wait and see. Right now, we're seeing a lot of movement by the CBN, and it will only go so far. It will only go fast. We've had now with the increase in band A tariffs, for which is one of the things that they flagged here as the response for an upward push of the numbers. So we've seen a bit of that, and that isn't going to stop, because over time, in theory, you're going to be mopping up more people and more areas into Bani in theory. So if you see more of that, obviously a lot more people
will
be hit by
all
these
become
tariffs.
band A people as it improves. That's okay. So
Theoretically,
Uade,
if the grid doesn't collapse.
Uade, your silence won't be golden on this one, especially when it comes to
my silence is extremely golden.
No, it won't be golden on this one. Uade, Uade, you have to.
Uade, put me on the spot.
Please.
Okay, I'm listening.
Now, he has touched on the issues relating to production, how the inflation and all these figures is still becoming a trouble for us. But I bring you into this knowing that what use is a currency that is now appreciating, but yet inflation. What's use is a currency appreciating, but yet you have inflation at this rate?
So there are different dynamics that drive inflation.
Yeah.
As you see in Nigeria, major driver of inflation. Initially, we thought subsidy removal would drive it so much higher, but the major driver is food. And Chibuzor has mentioned the most critical thing that needs to be done, where majority of your food producing areas are under control of terrorists, then you have a major challenge in terms of one, production supply meeting the demand. That's one. And then when you find out that the ability to move foods from farm to market is, I don't want to, I'm trying to find the right word, is not good enough.
Chaotic. At the very least.
Chaotic at the very least. And Chibuzor can speak to that, because he's done some things in that area where roads are bad. Let's even leave the insecurity. Roads are bad. Tariffs are paid on roads. Are you with me? So what you usually rail systems that we've been hearing for the last 10 years have still not come to pass. The ones that are there are carrying passengers rather than carrying the essentials that should help Nigeria, drop the inflation. If food inflation has hit 40% and baseline inflation for the country is 33.2%, so you can see the effect on that. Though when you look at that inflation figure between February and March, it dropped by I think it's 0.3 basis points. So it's between January and February it went up by about 1.8 basis point. Here it goes up by 1.5. Maybe something is being done, but the fact remains that where logistics is chaotic and poor, where insecurity is the order of the day, we're going to continue to have rising food inflation.
I'm afraid you will still link this next headline to this inflation all over again. So this is why you see I said your silence wouldn't be golden this morning. But let's go to the Punch newspaper where the headline here states, federal government still subsidizing petrol in trillions of naira. This is credited to former governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai.
Well, to a large extent, I believe they are. And this is my opinion. Why? Because when you look at one, refineries are not producing. Although we continually heard that, I think Port Harcourt refinery, have they finished the test in Chibuzor? The last we heard is that they were doing testing.
There's a lot of PR around.
So I really don't know whether they're churning out petrol. We've seen prices of diesel go down a bit because I know that Dangote has started to at least push some of it into the market from its refinery. But the fact remains that if exchange rate is at a point in time 1,900 and today it's 1,080 naira, and when exchange rate was 460, we're buying fuel at 165, and the landing cost was above 200, almost 250, then it's not rocket science. Even the kids can add one. Well, I don't know today, but the number of kids can add 1 + 1 to make it 2. However, what I think I see is 1 + 1 is becoming 11 because everybody continues to tell me, oh, what's it called? The price of petrol. But the price of petrol is not flowing in the direction of the price of jet fuel, in the price of diesel. And it's the same market that it has been deregulated. Yeah. And we've seen it not today, over time. That when petrol was about 165, diesel then was about almost 300. And that's because of the fact that a lot of it is still imported. The sole importer is NNPC. So NNPC needs to tell us, are they still subsidizing, or at what rate are they getting from the open market, the foreign exchange market, their exchange?
So looking at
dollars to pay.
I'm looking into the story and I see where El-Rufai seem not to be critical about the if it's, as he said, being subsidized. He says it's not a bad policy because the government has to retrace its steps, seeing where it is, looking at the story.
Yeah, so he says that, very convenient for him to say. I'm still a proponent of taking out fuel subsidy, and I will defend that from now till tomorrow. However, like they say, if you made a mistake, then you should come out and admit that a mistake has been made and this is the direction that we're going in, but this is how long it's going to take. Nobody has told us. The government tells us that they're not paying subsidy. That's one. The government has not told us that taking out subsidy completely was wrong, that they didn't plan for it. So, but according to the administration, subsidy is not being paid, so we take it at that.
And nobody's rejecting the freebies at the pump when they go to buy to, saying it should be more expensive. Why am I getting this cheaper?
When it was 165, it was the same thing. Okay. We go there and we buy the petrol. What you can afford now, you buy. Even now, like Chibuzor said, we're not sure. I don't know what Chibuzor's inflation index is. Yeah. Mine is on the high side.
Chibuzor, before I get to the headline, which is next, I'd like the listener to know we're reading messages shortly on 0809 444 0981. We'll be where we read your thoughts relating to the headlines this morning. Chibuzor Nwaezeapu, the federal government allocates 8,925 affordable houses nationwide. Does this look like a drop of a cube of sugar in the bucket of housing deficit? And does this make any difference?
Between 17 and 20 million housing deficit.
Okay, so I'm going to try and speak less to the numbers. So I think I was making this. So I think some weeks ago I was privy to some of the presentations of some of these housing units that are being ruled out. And in fact, I think the question of people that I was in the same room when we were having that discussion made a comment about why was the name of the estate so long, because in typical Nigerian fashion we had put the entire name of the president and put his current the motto, renewed hope. So it was
the Nigerian motto, renewed hope.
Yeah, it was the president, Bola Ahmed Asiwaju Tinubu estates, renewed hope estates. And I think it was like, how will I put down my address list? But that's another discussion for another day. So what is the federal government trying to do in this instance? They're trying to, in their way, fill the housing deficit. So um, they are currently about to assign 8,925 residents to basically receive applications for over 8,000 houses, right? They're doing this through mortgage institutions. So you have over 1,000 via mortgage. There is over 2,000. Well, sorry, outright payment over 1,000. Mortgage is over 2,000, and same thing for rent to own. Then you have also instrumental payments, about 3,000 of this units will go by that way. So applicants have to enroll in the various systems or processes, go through profiling, go through the various checks, and get offers. Get offers and professional allocation. So what they've tried to do is that they've basically tried to do this regionally. So the estates currently are going to be in Abia, Lagos, Bayelsa, Rivers, and the FCT. I do know almost for certain that the Lagos houses are not ready, but the story says otherwise. But basically they have it in the six these 6 locations at the moment. This is where they have a planned unit. So when I say they are not ready, they are not, well, as at last 2 months.
Are they low-cost housing or medium?
Well, what they've used here is, so I'm very
or highbrow housing, because these are some of the things that define a number of these things. I know some of our parents, are you with me, got through this Lagos on low-cost housing. Some of the people who are where they are today live through this low-cost and medium cost housing. So what's the definition of the house?
So that's where that for me is where the interest is. So they've used the word affordable.
What is affordable?
And some of these units they're actually approaching people in diaspora. So the question about affordability
affordability has to do with those who don't live in Nigeria.
No, they're offering some of it because they're also Nigerian. Because they're also Nigerians.
We're having this discussion so that I can know better.
So what I would say to you basically is, like I said,
are they for investments or for people to be able to live?
It's to be able to fill in the housing gap. And we know that the housing gap is quite
17 to 20 million.
Well, little drops of water would make a mighty ocean at some point.
Okay.
So the truth is that I'm very careful about whatever I'm going to say around, because they've used the word affordable. Now affordability obviously is relative. What is affordable?
133 million.
What is affordable to
dimensional poverty? And as at the last count, the World Bank has said that there's been that there's an increase of between 7 to 10 million.
So I'm going to wrap up with this.
I'm
going to wrap up with this. I think it's like every other sector, like power, like for petroleum, housing also has its own cost. It has its own cost factors, cost implements. When you're looking at housing, you're looking at the price of the property that you want to get. Especially the kind of markets we have in Nigeria, which is basically a lot of people are buying up property for investment purposes or other purposes that we would not call on radio. So the price of the land is a factor. The price of the building implements, a lot of them also affected by are imported. So you look at how do you look at the price of the implements, price of the land itself. How do you make sure that the land houses are affordable? You do need to look at both components and see, how can I manage the cost of those components? How can I drop cement for one? How can I make sure that we are not importing all the wash trays, the fittings in the houses? How do we do that? Then government has some wiggle room over land, because all land belongs to government in Nigeria at the end of the day.
Now we have message waiting. Yinka Bolu is waiting. Uade, if a kid can add 1 and 1 together, then we don't need the government to admit anything, because we should be able to add 1 and 1, saving our precious time. Was subsidy removed at the point? Yes, it was. However, did the exchange rate dynamics support it? No. If we are not that, were Nigerians ready to accept that dynamics? No. The labor union won't even allow it. So what should the government do? Allow the country to descend into chaos? Sometimes there's some issues we just keep quiet about, and El Rufai should know better. That's how Yinka Bolu sums it up.
My favorite contributor.
Yes, and then
Peter, my buddy for life.
Peter from Festa comes up saying, well, at least El Rufai have broken the back of the camel on subsidy that was never gone. Subsidy never law anywhere. Was English. Okay. That's just what it is. Believe the APC, just speaking. Then it goes on to the Bible 10, verse 10, John. Oluwaseyi comes up with the next one. Did you know that corruption plays a very great role in food inflation? For example, pre-2023, the average middleman bringing a truckload of yams from the Middle Belt is reported to pay between 1.5 million naira to 2.2 million naira in bribes to security men on the roads. Add money to bandits, transportation levy, legal taxes, cost of diesel, etc. Even people bringing foodstuffs coming from the villages in Ogun State to the cities and to Lagos also have to pay these bribes too. Food can be cheap with all of these payments, and these are the things gentlemen have alluded to, in addition to the general inflation and exchange rates. What else? Kainde has a message and he says, I'm sorry to say this. Journalism should be beyond news that are not investigated. How do we know the production estimates of all the agricultural enterprises? Because the high rise of foodstuffs price is not economically normal. Dollar has dropped, but still our marketers who are... Gentlemen, can we get this across now?
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Mache. Go on.
Not economically normal. Dollar has dropped, but still our marketers are not ready and selfish, refuse to crash prices because they are making money under the current dispensation of dollar, kidnapping, etc. Well, all ministries of agriculture, federal government inclusive, should come up with a production cost estimate, and let's see if needed there is inflation. Well, they can do this through so many agricultural program. Where else? Dan Okuda's message is waiting. It says, well, insecurity is at the root of the present food shortages ravaging the country. Without tackling this menace frontally, we have a long way to go in food security in Nigeria. And it goes, that's for him, Barrister Dan Okuda from Igondo. And Ajayi Ololindwa from Magodo Jari Sherry says, well, the constant power collapse of the national grid is not surprising, as Nigeria depends on only one transmission line to distribute electricity. The question that is not being answered is why the government holding on to the transmission end when electricity can be generated, transmitted and distributed by one company for a specific area. Well, so it looks like where Yinka Bolu comes in on the yam issue once again. Yam matters, serious. The yams that were intercepted on their way to border countries, where were those planted? In their rooms? CN, the food inflation wala in Nigeria, no just straight at all.
Yinka Bolu, I did me for life.
That's our favorite.
Yes, sir. Our favorite contributor.
I guess, gentlemen, we have to rest it here. And I want to say thank you so much to Uade Ahimie for your time, as always.
Thank you for having me in the studio. And Nigeria, Lagos, have a great day ahead.
And thank you also to Chibuzor Nwaezeapu for your time.
Thank you so much.
All right, have a great day. And now we're going somewhere after now. That will be for the grip.